If you have ever felt like no matter how hard you work, you still cannot get ahead financially, you are not crazy. Millions of Americans are working longer, watching their budgets more carefully, doing the things they were told to do and still falling behind. And here is the part that nobody says out loud. A lot of this is not happening by accident. What if the biggest reason people struggle financially has less to do with discipline and more to do with the game itself? This video is not about blaming you for buying coffee. It is not a lecture about avocado toast or bad spending habits. It is an honest breakdown of why so many hardworking people feel financially trapped and what is really underneath that feeling. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will see why so many responsible, working people feel like they are running and somehow still standing in the same spot. Hit subscribe if you want to keep getting the honest version of this conversation, because that is all we do here. We have been told the same story for years. Work hard, budget better, be responsible, skip the luxury, be patient, and you will be fine. But if that story were completely true, why are so many people who are being responsible still drowning? That is the question this video is built around. Before we get into the real reasons, I want to destroy the first myth, because the first reason most Americans struggle financially is this: we keep reducing a complicated structural problem into a personal character flaw. We hear that people are broke and we immediately think lazy, reckless, undisciplined, bad with money. That story's easy. It is also dangerously incomplete. Yes, personal choices matter. Nobody is pretending they don't, but when rent, healthcare, groceries, childcare, insurance, and debt all rise simultaneously and faster than income, this stops being just a budgeting problem. You cannot budget your way out of a squeeze that is structural, and pretending you can is the first trap. That oversimplification keeps people focused on fixing themselves while the bigger picture goes completely unexamined. And once you see the next point, you will understand exactly why so many paychecks disappear before people even breathe. Here is the first dirty secret. Most people are not failing financially. They are being financially squeezed. And the squeeze is quiet. It does not announce itself. You just notice one day that the same life costs more than it did 3 years ago, and your income did not keep pace. Think about what has happened to the actual cost of being alive in America. Housing costs have climbed in almost every major metro. Groceries are up. Car insurance is up. Healthcare out-of-pocket costs keep rising. Childcare, if you have kids, can cost more per year than college tuition in some cities. And these are not optional luxury categories. These are the fixed costs of a functional adult life. They eat first. Whatever is left over is what people actually have to work with. That is why someone can earn more money than they did 5 years ago and still feel poorer. Because more income does not automatically mean more breathing room when the floor keeps rising underneath you. The math has changed. The game has changed. And people who feel like they are losing ground are often not failing. They are simply trying to keep up with something that is genuinely harder to keep up with than it was a generation ago. But the cost squeeze is only part of the story. Because when income cannot cover everything, something fills the gap. And that something is debt. Here's the second dirty secret. America runs on debt, and that is not just a warning. It is a design feature of the system. Credit cards, auto loans, student loans, medical debt, buy dash now, dash pay, dash later. Financing plans for furniture, electronics, vacations. Debt has become so normalized in American life that for many people, it is no longer an emergency backup plan. It is the operating system. And the uncomfortable thing about that is this: the system benefits when people are permanently paying interest. Banks and financial institutions do not profit when you pay your balance in full every month. They profit when you carry a balance, make minimum payments, and keep the clock running on compound interest working against you. So debt gets marketed as convenience, as access, as freedom. You can have it now. 0% for 12 months. Flexible payments. And by the time the interest kicks in, you are already in the next purchase cycle. You do not just pay for the thing, you pay for the privilege of being behind. What makes debt particularly dangerous is that it mortgages your future income. Every dollar you owe is a claim on money you have not earned yet. Your next paycheck is already partially spoken for before it arrives. And once that becomes the normal rhythm of your financial life, getting ahead feels almost mathematically impossible because you are always trying to escape a hole that keeps refilling itself. But debt only becomes this dangerous when people do not understand how it actually works. Which brings us to the third reason. One of America's quietest and most expensive secrets is this. People are expected to make high-stakes financial decisions inside a brutal, complex money system with almost no real training. Think about what schools actually teach. Algebra, geometry, the water cycle, the branches of government, all genuinely useful. But compound interest, credit scores, and how they actually work. The difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional one, how fees quietly destroy long-term investment returns, how taxes work beyond the basic paycheck deduction. Almost nothing. A generation of adults walked into a financially complicated world with a nearly empty toolkit. And here's the thing. Confused consumers are easier to exploit. Not in a dramatic, shadowy, conspiracy way, just in a very practical business model way. When people do not understand interest rates, they accept worse ones. When people do not understand investment fees, they pay them without knowing it. When people cannot read the fine print on a financing agreement, they sign it anyway because the monthly payment sounds manageable. Financial complexity is profitable for the institutions that understand it and expensive for the people who don't. We teach people algebra for years, but not how interest can quietly own their future. That gap is not a coincidence. It is a cost that falls entirely on the individual, and that cost adds up quietly across decades in ways most people never fully see. Once you see that clearly, the next trap starts to make sense. Because even when people try to escape the squeeze, there is a culture designed to pull them back in. Modern consumer culture is not designed to make you content. It is designed to make you feel one purchase away from becoming the person you want to be. One upgrade away from the life you imagined. One experience away from finally feeling like you made it. Advertising does not just sell products. It sells identity. It sells status. It sells convenience as self-care and spending as reward. And social media has turned that into a 24-hour exposure engine. The car your coworker drives. The vacation someone you went to high school with just posted. The apartment renovation. The new gadget. The subscription box. The meal delivery service that costs twice what cooking would. The comparison machine never stops. And this matters financially because emotional spending is real spending. When people are stressed and working class and middle class, Americans are under chronic financial stress. Convenience gets expensive fast. The food delivery order after a 12-hour shift. The impulse buy that felt like a reward for a hard week. This subscription that started as a trial and became invisible. None of these are moral failures. They are the predictable results of exhausted people living inside a machine engineered to turn their fatigue into revenue. The result is that spending becomes the primary way people process stress, celebrate progress, and soothe discomfort. And once spending becomes emotional, it becomes nearly invisible. Nobody budgets for the version of themselves that is running on empty at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. But here is the trap inside the trap. Even when people escape the squeeze, even when they get a raise, land a better job, finally breathe a little, something happens. The lifestyle expands to meet the new income, and then the breathing room disappears again. This is lifestyle inflation. And it is one of the most underappreciated reasons people never quite build real financial momentum, even as their income climbs. The apartment gets upgraded, the car payment grows, the restaurants get slightly more expensive, the vacations get a little bigger, the expectations, your own expectations, rise. And quietly, the new income gets absorbed before it ever becomes margin. A higher income can hide the same financial fragility. Someone earning $100,000 a year with $500 in savings is not financially stronger than someone earning $60,000 with $20,000 in savings and no debt. The number on the paycheck is not the whole story. The gap between what comes in and what goes out. That is the story. And lifestyle inflation silently closes that gap faster than most people realize until the next unexpected expense hits and the cycle starts again. I want to be honest here. This is not about shaming anyone for wanting comfort or for enjoying the money they worked hard to earn. That is not the point. The point is awareness. Because you cannot make a deliberate decision about something you cannot see clearly. So those are the real forces at work: the cost squeeze, the debt system, the financial knowledge gap, the consumption culture, and the lifestyle creep. What can someone actually do without pretending the system is perfectly fair? Without promising that hard work alone solves everything? What is the realistic, honest answer? The goal is this: become harder to exploit. Not perfect. Not immune. Just harder to break. You may not control the cost of rent or the interest rate the bank charges, but you can build enough clarity about your own money that fewer decisions get made by default, fewer subscriptions silently renew, fewer financing offers get signed without being understood, fewer paychecks disappear without a single intentional direction. Step 1. Track where your money actually goes. Not to shame yourself, not to find something to cut, just to see the real pattern. Most people have a rough idea of their spending. Very few have the actual picture, and the actual picture changes the conversation you have with yourself. You cannot make better decisions with blurry information. Step 2. Attack high-interest debt deliberately. Interest is a wealth killer. It works against you the same way compound growth works for investors: quietly, relentlessly, every single day. Paying down high-interest debt is one of the highest guaranteed returns available to an everyday person. Not glamorous. Absolutely true. Step 3. Build margin before trying to look successful. An emergency fund is not a savings account. It is the thing that keeps one bad month from becoming 6 bad months. Even a small cash buffer changes your decision-making under pressure. When you have no margin, every emergency becomes debt. When you have some margin, you have choices. Step 4. Learn the basics. Not to become a financial advisor, just enough to protect yourself. How credit scores are actually calculated. How compound interest works, both for you in investments and against you in debt. The basics of a retirement account. What investment fees actually cost over 30 years. This knowledge is not complicated. It is just not taught. And learning it is one of the most asymmetric investments of time a person can make. Step 5. Question: what is actually normal in your life? Not with guilt, with curiosity. Is this expense improving my actual life, or is it just maintaining the image of a life? That question, asked honestly and regularly, does more than any budget template, because the expenses that are hardest to cut are the ones that have become invisible, the ones that feel like identity rather than choice. Step 6. Separate your self-worth from your spending. This one is quietly enormous. When people use consumption to signal success, belonging, or self-reward, cutting spending feels like cutting themselves. It feels like deprivation, like punishment, like saying you are not worth the good things. But financial security is a good thing. Margin is a good thing. Not owing your next 3 paychecks before they arrive is a good thing. The goal is not to look rich. The goal is to become financially harder to break. And that is the reframe that changes everything. Not perfection. Not deprivation. Clarity. Deliberate decisions made from a place of understanding, not from pressure, not from comparison, not from exhaustion. If you have been blaming yourself for not getting ahead fast enough, maybe it is time to look at the bigger picture. Because the real reason most Americans struggle financially is not that they are all irresponsible. It is that they are trying to survive inside a system that rewards confusion, profits from debt, and normalizes spending as identity. That system is real. Those pressures are real. And naming them honestly is not an excuse. It is the beginning of actually doing something about them. Because once you see the trap clearly, you stop walking into it by default. And you start making decisions from understanding instead of from pressure. That is where real financial change begins. Not from a perfect plan, from a clearer picture. Drop a like if this video finally put words to something you have been feeling for a while. And if you want more honest conversations like this, subscribe, because we are going deeper.